forward to my right, your left. Please be careful. There is a ramp that leads up to the witness stand. When we get to the top, I'd ask that you stand and raise your right hand, please.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Be seated.
Could you please state and spell your full name for the record?
Trevor Naled, Trevornaleid.
And where are you employed?
I'm employed by the Wisconsin Department of Justice at the State Crime Laboratory in Madison.
And what is your position with the crime lab?
My main job is a senior forensic scientist in the DNA analysis unit, and I'm also a crime scene response team leader.
And how long have you been employed there?
15 years.
Can you just tell us briefly a little bit about your educational background?
Sure. I received my bachelor's degree from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in biochemistry, and I have a master's degree from the University of Florida in forensic DNA and serology.
And how many cases approximately have you worked in this capacity?
I've worked over 550 DNA cases and roughly 55 crime scene response cases as a team lead.
Now, through the course of that employment, were you assigned to assist in an investigation regarding Zachariah Rasch and Crystal Rasch?
I was.
What was your role in that investigation?
My job was to do in-house processing on 3 vehicles that were submitted to our lab.
And just generally, what does that mean, processing of a vehicle?
Just documenting the condition it's in, taking photos of the vehicle as it's received, inventorying the vehicle, and looking for any probative items or items that may be important as evidence for a case.
And did you process 3 vehicles involved in this case?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall what those vehicles were?
I do.
Can you please tell us?
Sure. The first vehicle I looked at was a 2023 Mitsubishi Eclipse crossover, silver in color. Second vehicle was a 2002 blue Dodge Ram truck. And the third vehicle was a 2005 Chevy Cobalt, red in color.
And how did the lab receive those vehicles?
They were driven down to the lab by law enforcement. Typically, they come in on a flatbed, escorted by a squad car.
And in this case, were these vehicles escorted by a representative from the Dodge County Sheriff's Office?
I believe they all were, yes.
What was the first vehicle that you processed?
The first vehicle I looked at was the 2023 Mitsubishi Eclipse.
And could you just walk us through the process that you, generally the process that you took in processing that?
Sure. The first thing we'll do is take intake photos. So while the truck's typically still on the flatbed or just inside of our garage, we'll do overall photos. So photos from all angles going around the vehicle from a distance. The next step will be doing individual areas of the car. So we'll open the driver's door, take pictures of the door, the seat. Then we'll do the rear driver's side, the trunk, the right rear passenger, the right front passenger, and then the under the hood if it's necessary. After those photos are taken, we'll inventory everything. So we put out white sheets. We'll write front driver's side, and then anything that's found in that vicinity will get put on the white pieces of paper. Notes will be taken on what was collected, and then photos of the white sheet are taken. And then any testing for evidentiary value, screening tests for blood typically. will be completed, and then those items will be collected and packaged up as evidence if found.
Mr. Nallid, I am showing you what's been previously marked as exhibits 297 through 349. Can you just briefly look through those images? And do you recognize those, what I just handed you?
I do, yes.
And are those images that were taken at the crime lab of the Mitsubishi Eclipse in this case?
They were, yes.
And are those all true and accurate representations of your observations of the Eclipse?
One of our photographers actually took the intake photos for this vehicle only, but I looked at it the following day that after these photos were taken, and yes, it looked just like this.
Your Honor, I'd ask that exhibits 297 through 349 be admitted. They were previously provided to defense counsel.
Any objection?
No.
And I'd ask permission to publish. All right, directing your attention to the screen, is this the same image as exhibit 297 in front of you?
Yes.
And can you tell us, what are we looking at here?
This would be the front of the Mitsubishi Eclipse cross.
And going to 298, what are we looking at here?
The rear of that same vehicle.
And then looking at exhibit 299.
That would be the left side of the vehicle.
Can you tell us, what are we seeing here, these red strips?
That's evidence tape. Typically doors and trunks and anything that can open on a vehicle will be evidence taped and initialed by whoever's packaging it. That's just to show that the item wasn't tampered with during transport.
And then this particular vehicle was escorted by the Dodge County Sheriff's Office, but had come from Adams County, correct?
To my knowledge, that's correct.
And it had been previously inventoried by Adams County Sheriff's Office.
Correct.
Going on to exhibit 300, what are we looking at here?
That's an image from through the vehicle from what would be the driver's seat.
So you indicated before that you initially take pictures from all angles and then focus in on anything of particular interest, correct?
Correct.
Was there anything of particular interest from just the driver's side of this vehicle?
Nothing from the actual driver's side, no.
And looking at exhibit 301, what is this picture of?
This is the driver's seat.
And during your processing, did you observe anything of evidentiary value there?
No.
And moving on to 302.
That would be the back of the driver's seat.
And again, was there anything of evidentiary value observed in that area?
No.
Now moving on to 303, what are we looking at here?
That'd be the inside rear passenger's door.
And 304, what are we looking at there?
The same door, just a mid-range photo, so slightly closer.
And is that typical of the way pictures are taken when you're processing this?
Yes, typically we'll take overall pictures from farther out, then mid-range, so zoomed in a little bit, and then if there's any items or areas that we really want to document more in depth, there'll be close-ups of those as well.
Was there anything of interest that was noted about this door?
No.
All right, moving on to Exhibit 305. What are we looking at there?
That would be the rear right passenger seat.
You mentioned earlier that if anything is inside the vehicle, that then it would be taken out and placed on a white piece of paper for inventory. Was there anything in this photograph that you had to do that for?
Yes, that yellow cap, and then there's an orange tag.
And moving on to 306, can you tell us what we're looking at there?
Yes, it's that same orange cap and then an orange Goodwill tag.
And so, is this on that white sheet that you described earlier?
Yes, it is.
Moving on to 307, what is this an image of?
This would be the trunk with the door open.
Was there anything of interest in this area?
There's an air freshener hanging from the rear hook there.
Am I circling that air freshener now?
Yes, you are.
When you first were processing the vehicle, did you make any observations about it as you opened and got into the vehicle?
There was a pretty significant scent of decomposition.
And what do you mean by significant?
It's hard to describe the smell. Once you smell it once, you'll recognize it every time after. I don't know what else to say.
Was it difficult to detect that odor?
No, not at all.
All right, moving on to 308. What perspective do we have here?
This would be inside the front passenger's door.
So at this point in the processing, are you simply just opening the door and then taking a picture of how it just as you observe it? Is that right?
Yes, without touching anything.
Going on to 309. What do we have here?
Just a slightly different angle of the previous image. There's a frog stuffed animal in the front passenger seat, and an ice scraper is angled.
Moving on to 310. What are we looking at here?
Those two items removed from the vehicle and put on the white sheet and photographed as previously explained.
Moving on to 311.
That's just a close-up of that frog stuffed animal, and there's some reddish brown staining on it.
And Your Honor, could we dim the lights for this photo? Is the staining that you referred to present in this area?
Yes.
And then 312, please. And I just want to confirm that the image that we're looking at is the same as is marked 312, 312 in front of you?
Correct, yes.
Okay. What are we looking at here?
The same image of that frog stuffed animal just flipped over.
And then moving on to 313. What are we looking at here?
A zoomed in image of that same frog stuffed animal.
And what, if anything, of interest is in the very center of that picture?
More reddish brown staining.
Now, what happens to, or what happened to that frog after you were done processing the vehicles?
If We have items that aren't going to be collected as evidence and marked as actual items. We'll just put them back in paper bags and then return them to the area of the vehicle that they were removed from originally.
And then, are those materials then taken into custody by the investigating agency?
Yeah, everything is returned to the investigating agency.
Mr. Nallett, are there gloves in front of you?
I have a pair.
And Mr. Nallett, do you have scissors in front of you?
I do not see scissors.
All right. Well, I've brought to you what's been marked as Exhibit 380. I've got scissors for you here.
All right.
Is Exhibit 380 currently in an evidence bag?
It's in a large paper bag.
And is that sealed with evidence tape?
Yes, it is.
Could you please open that bag?
Sure.
And can you tell me what's inside that bag?
It appears to be, excuse me, it appears to be that same frog stuffed animal.
And the best you can, could you remove it from the bag? And if you wouldn't just mind standing and holding it up. And is that the same green stuffed frog that was removed from the Mitsubishi Eclipse?
It appears to be, yes.
And the same that we see portrayed in the images?
Yes.
I move admission of Exhibit 380.
No. In 18 years, I'm receiving a fraud into the record.
All right, now moving on to Exhibit 314. What do we see there?
That's just a closer up image of the ice scraper.
And that's the ice scraper that was taken from the front passenger seat of the Mitsubishi Eclipse, correct?
Correct.
All right, moving on to 315.
It's the same image to show some reddish brown staining just above the handle.
And then 316, 316.
Even more zoomed in of the same area of the ice scraper.
And now directing your attention to Exhibit 317. What area of the car is that capturing?
That'd be the center console.
And then 318.
Also the center console.
And what do we see in that picture in the center console?
Those are two vapes.
And again, were those removed?
Yes, they were.
And can we take a look at Exhibit 319? What are we looking at here?
Those items, as well as 3 pens that were also in the center console, removed and photographed on the white sheet of paper.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 381. Can you first just tell me what you're looking at as far as the packaging?
Sure. This is packaging that I packaged on July 1st, 2024. It's labeled with our case number, marker 5, red and black, Oni, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, ONEE stick, Smart 25K strawberry vape.
And has that bag been opened?
After packaging, yes, it was opened by the DNA analyst in this case.
And then is it opened in front of you? Is there a slit on the top?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then can you remove the item from inside? And does that appear to be the same vape that was recovered from the Mitsubishi Eclipse?
Yes, it does.
And when you processed that, then where did that go? What was the next step for that vape?
After packaging it, I brought it up to the evidence unit, and then when a DNA analyst takes the case, they'll pick up the evidence from our evidence technicians.
I'd move admission of Exhibit 381.
No objection.
Be received.
All right, then moving on to Exhibit 320. What are we looking at there?
That's the bottom of the Mountain Dew bottle that was in the center console with some reddish brown staining on it.
Is that observed here?
Yes.
All right, now turning to Exhibit 321. Again, I just want to confirm that the image in front of you is the same, which is marked 321 is the same as being displayed.
Yes, it is.
Okay. What are we looking at here?
This is a mid-range shot of the interior of the front right passenger door.
And looking now at 322.
That's a slightly more zoomed in picture of that same door.
And Your Honor, at this point, could we also dim the lights for these pictures? Sure. Thank you. I want to direct your attention to this area here right in the middle. Can you, at this point, just tell us what we're looking at there?
Sure. It's hard to see in the picture, but there's some reddish brown staining in that area.
And moving on to Exhibit 323, can you tell us what we're looking at there?
A zoomed in image of that same area to show the size of any staining. Sometimes we'll put a scale on there, which is what that white sticker is.
So when we start seeing these stickers, does that signify that that was part of that next process in processing the car?
It can possibly be for additional testing, yes.
But also, it's at that point you are specifically identifying areas of interest. Is that fair?
Yes.
And then moving on to 324. What are we looking at here?
Similar picture, just slightly zoomed in. of that same door with reddish brown staining.
And now directing your attention to Exhibit 325. What are we looking at here?
That is the front right passenger seat.
And what observations, just from this perspective, were you able to make from this?
There's some pretty significant diffuse reddish brown staining throughout the entire seat.
Is that what we're seeing particularly here?
Yes.
Moving on to 326. What are we looking at here?
Basically the same image, just slightly down. It has part of the door frame in the photo as well.
And then 327.
That's just panning down slightly more. Pretty significant amount of reddish brown staining on the frame.
Is that what we're seeing here?
Yes.
328.
It's a picture of the same area, just with scale added.
And now we see a white sticker with a number 1. What does that mean?
The 1 is, so anytime we get a vehicle, in this case, it came into our lab as item A. So anything we take off that vehicle has to be sub-designated. So we put a 1 there because this was the first item to come off the vehicle, so A1. Just to show for later where testing was and where sample was collected from.
All right, moving on to 329. What are we looking at here?
The same area, just zoomed in more.
So can you tell us what additional processing then did you do for this area indicated number 1?
I did a phenolphthalein test, which is a presumptive test for blood. It's a color change test, so you'll swab the area, add a couple of reagents, and if it's blood, it'll turn a bright pink color. If it's not, it will not change colors at all.
And did you do that testing here?
Yes, I did.
What was the result of that?
It was positive for blood.
What else did you do then from this area?
After we have a presumptive test will tell you if it could possibly be blood, but doesn't narrow it down to a species. So it could be any animal blood would also react to that. So the next step is to do a confirmatory test, which is human and higher primate specific. We call it a hematrace test.
And was that conducted in this area, on the sample in this area?
Yes, it was.
Was that done by you?
Yes,
What was the results of that?
positive.
And again, what does positive mean?
Meaning that it probably came from a human or higher primate.
So then at that point, do you pass those samples on to the next step?
Yeah, so I would take a swabbing of that area, put the swabs in packaging, seal that package up, and then bring it to the evidence technicians.
And did you do that for this area that was marked 1?
Yes, I did, and that'd be sub-designated as item A1.
And then was that further analysis done by someone else at the crime lab?
Yes, it was.
All right, moving on to Exhibit 330. What are we looking at here?
We are looking at the seat belt on the pillar of the front passenger door.
And what, if anything, did you notice here?
And significant amount of reddish brown staining.
And in the position here, the seatbelt is not engaged, correct?
Correct.
Turning now to 331. 331, what are we looking at here?
The seatbelt is now engaged, and it's a photograph of the entire seat with seatbelt engaged.
And what, if anything, you know what, I'm going to give you the pointer here. And could you just use that to direct our attention to what you're observing here?
And while you're doing that, if you could explain so that there's some kind of record, some kind of reference point to what you are basing, all right?
Sure. Okay, so we have pretty significant amount of reddish brown staining on the seat belt. The main testing that I did was around this area. We take representative samples, so if a test is going to be positive for blood there, we typically assume that areas right around that are also going to be, and that way we're not collecting 100 items from what's probably going to be the same. So in this case, I chose the area right about there,
All right, and we'll actually move on to Exhibit 3.
which is a few inches away from the latch of the seatbelt.
And that's on what we would call the lap belt area.
Correct.
Moving on to Exhibit 332. And is that the same image as the Exhibit 332 marked in front of you?
Yes, it is, with a number 2 sticker added, as well as an arrow kind of just to indicate where testing and collection was completed.
And then Exhibit 333.
A zoomed in image of that same area.
So again, we have that white sticker with the number 2. For this case, what does that mean?
Item 2 marked from this vehicle, and that's the area that testing was completed for phenolphthalein and hemotrace, and where the swabbings were collected for future analysis.
All right, and so what testing did you perform?
Phenolphthalein test again, so presumptive positive for blood, and then a hemotrace test as well.
And again, that hemotrace is to then confirm whether or not that's blood from a human or higher primate.
Correct.
And what was the result of that test there?
Positive.
Turning to 334 just quickly, what do we see there?
Same image, just from a different angle, slightly zoomed out, and I think the attempt of this picture was to show more reddish brown staining up on the shoulder area.
And that's on the seat belt, the shoulder strap, correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 335.
Slightly different angle, same idea, reddish brown staining on the shoulder strap of the seatbelt.
And Exhibit 336, what do we see here?
Slightly different angle, that's where the seatbelt retracts to.
All right, and now moving on to Exhibit 337. What portion of the vehicle is this?
This is a vent on the front right passenger dashboard.
Now looking at 338, what do we see there?
This would be the same area, just with a scale and number 3 sticker added.
Looking at 339, is that the same but just zoomed in?
Yes, to show reddish brown staining right there.
And so there's a small kind of a ruler sticker showing increments 1, 2, and 3, where you indicating to a reddish stain just above the about 2 mark on that.
Yes.
All right, so again, we see here we see a sticker number 3. What does that signify for this case?
This is the third area that items were collected from. So a swabbing of this area was also completed and packaged up as item A3.
Did you do any additional testing in this area?
I believe I did a phenolphthalein test, so a presumptive test for blood, and that was positive.
And was that all the testing that you did for this area?
Yes.
Then for both this area and area number 2 that we just discussed, you passed those samples on for further testing by someone else in the lab?
As well as item 1, yes.
Correct. All right, now looking at 340, 340. What are we looking at here?
This would be the top of the front right passenger door. We'll typically put a white sheet up behind the glass because otherwise it's really hard to visualize if there's anything on the actual glass.
And what, if anything, drew your attention to this area?
There's a lot of reddish brown staining, little specks throughout the window.
Looking at Exhibit 341.
Just a zoomed in area of one of those reddish brown specks with a scale added.
And so one of the specs, though there's several, one is just above the scale, again above the number 2, but is that a fair description?
Yes, right about there.
342.
I believe this picture is slightly to the left of the previous picture, just to show more reddish brown staining on the window.
343.
Again, I think it shifted slightly to the left again, to show more reddish brown staining on the window.
And now looking at Exhibit 344.
There's reddish brown staining on the inside center console, the front right passenger side, and then there was a sticker added for a scale as well. So, right.
And looking at Exhibit 345, is that a zoomed in picture of that same area?
Yes, it is.
And what do we see? I see that there's, again, a scale sticker. What do we see above that scale sticker?
Some additional reddish brown staining.
Looking at Exhibit 346.
This is a picture of the center console from the front right passenger side. The Mountain Dew bottle would have been removed at this point. Inside the cup holder, there is some additional reddish brown staining, so a scale was placed in there as well.
And looking at Exhibit 347, is that a zoomed in picture of that same area we were just looking at?
Yes, it is.
And then what do we see above, or about the 1 of that scale sticker?
The reddish brown staining that I was talking about, right there.
And then Exhibit 348.
That's underneath the front right passenger glove box. There is some reddish brown staining, and there's a scale placed there as well.
And then 349. It's difficult to see, but is that a zoomed in image of the last image that we saw?
It appears to be, yes.
All right, Mr. Nallid, I'm now showing you what's been marked as Exhibits 350 through 379. Can you just take a moment to look through those? Do you recognize those images?
Yes, I do.
And what are they?
These are the images of the second vehicle that I photographed. It's the 2002 blue Dodge Ram 1500.
And then just directing your attention to exhibits specifically 3, 6, 7, and following. Are those images from the third vehicle?
Yes, they are.
And are all these images true and accurate representations of those vehicles as you process them?
Yes.
I'd move admission of exhibits 350 through 379. They have been previously provided to defense.
No objection.
Will be received.
I would also ask permission to publish.
Permission to publish.
All right, now directing your attention to exhibit 350, 350, is that image that's displayed the same as the image that's been marked as 350?
Yes, it is.
All right, and what do we see there?
This is an image of the vehicle on a flatbed truck right outside our garage at the Madison Crime Lab.
And so is this the way that the vehicles would be transported to the crime lab?
Yeah, it's common for them to arrive like this.
And in this case, we see yellow tape along the seams of the doors. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, it's the same idea as the evidence tape. Basically, it's just to show that the item wasn't tampered with during transport.
All right, moving on to exhibit 351. What are we looking at here?
This is the rear of the truck.
And then looking at exhibit 352. What are we looking at there?
This is what was in the bed of the truck with the tailgate down.
So, just as you testified earlier, then is it part of your process in processing this vehicle to then do an inventory of everything that's in the vehicle?
Yes.
Looking now at exhibit 353. What perspective of the back of the trunk does that show us there?
This is a zoomed in image of the left side of the truck bed.
Looking now at 354.
That's a zoomed in image of the right side of the truck bed.
Looking at 355.
This is items removed and put onto the white paper for photographing.
Looking at 356. What are we looking at there?
It's the OxyClean Arm & Hammer stain fighter, and there's some reddish brown staining on the handle.
Showing you what's been marked as exhibit 382. Can you just first tell us what we're looking at from the outside?
Sure. This is when I packaged the item up, put it in this paper bag here, and labeled it with item B1, A&H, Arm & Hammer, with OxyClean detergent with reddish brown staining on handle.
And was that previously opened this morning?
It appears so, yes.
And could you take the contents out? Now, is that the same, does that appear to be the same Arm & Hammer detergent that was retrieved from the back of the Dodge Ram?
Yes.
And so then, what happens to that after you're done with it, I guess?
After I'm done with it and it goes to the evidence technicians, the DNA analyst would pick it up and typically would swab the area in question of the reddish brown staining in this instance.
The state would move Exhibit 382 into evidence.
No objection.
And so then in this case, this physical item is passed on to other analysts at the lab, correct?
Correct.
Now looking at Exhibit 357, what do we see in this picture?
This is like abyssal, I believe is abyssal, carpet cleaner, I believe, and a few other things. Gas can.
And to your knowledge, is well, can you tell us where the gas can is in this picture?
The top right of the image.
So in the top right, there's a dark red canister. Is that what you're indicating?
Right there, yep.
Is, to your knowledge, is petrol another word for gasoline?
Yes.
Turning to 358, what is that?
This is an attachment for that carpet cleaner. There's reddish brown staining on it.
And looking at 359,
Also appears to be part of that carpet cleaner with reddish brown staining.
looking at 360, is that a zoomed in picture of the last exhibit?
Yes, it is.
And what, you mentioned in the previous exhibit that there was some reddish staining. Can you identify that in this picture?
Sure. It's not showing up as well on that picture as it is here, but there's some right there, up on the back here.
All right, so is it fair to say that you're indicating there's sort of a parallel cross section almost across the middle of the picture, and are you indicating to spots on that middle section where you see the red staining?
Yes.
Appears to be the right side of the piece of the foot is displayed.
Correct.
Turning to Exhibit 361, what do we see there?
Just a different angle of that same carpet cleaner with reddish brown staining.
Exhibit 362.
Again, another angle with reddish brown staining on the handle.
And is that at the very, there's a distinct white portion of that handle, and are you indicating to the bottom of that white handle portion?
Yes.
All right, I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 383. Can you first tell me what you're looking at there just based on the packaging?
Yep, this is a brown paper bag that I packaged the item in on July 3rd, 2024. I labeled it item B2, Hoover carpet cleaner with reddish brown staining.
And I think if you look on the left side of it as you're looking at it, is the seams bursting, if you will, on that at this point?
Yes, they are.
Could you just open carefully that portion of the bag and tell us what is inside?
The same thing that appears in these images. It looks like a small handheld carpet cleaner.
All right, and I know there's multiple pieces within, but could you remove, best you can, the item?
One. Let me just set it down. I got this marker.
Yes.
Appears to be a solution tank for this carpet cleaner. Tank. And the actual unit itself.
So then, this appears to be the unit that you removed from that Dodge Ram.
Correct.
And so, walk us through just briefly then the process when you take that item.
I just packaged it up as is, labeled what it was, and sent it to the evidence technicians. At this point, I looked at the previous vehicle and had positive, those positive hemotrace results, so the confirmatory test for blood. At this point, I was comfortable not screening it and collecting it. If it ended up not being blood later, that would be for the DNA analyst to determine.
And so then, after this is processed and collected by you, you pass that on to another person at the crime lab for further analysis.
Correct. Brought it to the evidence technicians, who would then pass it on to the DNA analysts whenever they were assigned.
All right, I would move admission of Exhibit 383.
No objection.
Say,
Detective Conley, could you assist? All right, moving on to Exhibit 363. All right, what are we looking at there?
That would be a picture of the front right passenger area of the Dodge Ram truck.
And again, is that as it appeared when you were processing it?
Yes.
Looking at 364, what do we have here?
A pile of paperwork, various receipts, envelopes.
Now again, you take all those items and then inventory them and lay them out on the white sheet of paper.
Correct.
All right, looking at 365, what do you see there?
A couple of CDs and a Walmart receipt.
And then directing your attention to that receipt, at about the middle of that receipt, underneath the word terminal, is there a date on that?
It appears to say June 18th, 24.
And then on the line that says debit, just below that, the line starting debit, are there 4 digits at the end of that line?
8942.
And just looking at the items on that receipt, do you see the words tire fee and new tire?
Yes.
All right, turning now to Exhibit 366. Was this an item also found in the Dodge Ram?
Yes, in the front right passenger area.
And just looking at that, what does that look like to you?
Wisconsin registration for a vehicle.
Does it have the name Rasch Crystal Ann and Rasch Zachariah Scott on it?
Yes, it does.
All right, now turning to Exhibit 367. And I just want to confirm that the Exhibit 367 in front of you matches the image on the screen.
Yes, it does.
All right, what are we looking at here?
This would be the left side of the third vehicle that I processed, the 2005 Chevy Cobalt.
Uh, 368.
The right side of that same vehicle.
And then 369.
That is a picture of the front of that same vehicle.
Exhibit 370, what's that there?
370 is a picture of the Cobalt from the rear with the trunk open and doors open as well.
372.
I believe that's 371.
Yep. So, all right. What you're looking at now, that's been marked as 370, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then 371.
371 is the trunk contents of the Chevy Cobalt.
And then 372.
Also more trunk contents of the Cobalt.
Exhibit 373.
That's with the items removed and placed on white paper and photographed.
And just starting at this picture here, at the top of the laid out sheet, just to the left of the word trunk, can you tell us what those 2 items are there?
Those appear to be receipts.
Looking at Exhibit 374. All right, and the image that's displayed, is that the same as 374 in front of you?
Yes.
Are you able to see better on what those items are?
Yes, they're both Menards receipts. The one on the left is from Johnson Creek Menards. The one on the right is from Beaver Dam Menards.
All right, I just want to start on the one on the left as we're looking at the screen. Is there a date on that, about the middle on the line that says EFT debit, and then to the right of that, is there a date?
Yes,
And what is that date?
June 22nd, 2024.
And then just by reading what's on the receipt, what are the items that you, just reading the words on the receipt, what do you see?
2 Santine ST drain at $7.99 each. New car scent protective wipes. 2 at $4.48, and a Monster Energy.
And then going to the receipt on the right, again, does it show a date for that transaction in the middle on the line that starts EFT debit?
Yeah, it appears to be the following day, so June 23rd, 2024.
And again, just quickly, the items that are listed there.
A portable air cooler for $16.99, and then 6 additional 32-ounce Santeen ST drain at $7.99 each.
All right, moving on to Exhibit 375. What do we see there?
This would be the center console of the Chevy Cobalt taken from the driver's seat area.
Exhibit 376.
Picture of the same area, just from a slightly different angle.
And again, this is all these items then you would take out in inventory.
Correct.
Moving on to 377.
That is the items removed from the vehicle and photographed on the white paper.
378. Is that a close-up of one of the items?
Yes, this was the phone charger that was plugged into the cigarette outlet.
And then Exhibit 379.
This is a zoomed-in image of that charger that was plugged in. There was some reddish-brown staining.
And it appears in the very center of the image, two wires almost make an X. They intersect. But is that where you're indicating the red stain?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 384. Take a look at that, please. Can you just tell me what you know about it from looking at the outside?
Sure. This is my writing. So item C1 that I packaged July 8th, 2024, labeled phone cable / charger with reddish brown staining.
And so after you inventoried that charger from the Cobalt, did you then package it in packaging like that?
Yes, this exact package.
And was that package previously open this morning?
Yes, it was.
Could you remove the item from the packaging? And does that appear to be the phone charging cable that you removed from the Chevy Cobalt?
Yes, it does.
And again, then did you pass that item on to other members of your lab for further analysis?
Yes. After I packaged it and sealed it up, I brought it to the evidence technicians, which eventually passed it on to the DNA analyst.
All right, could you replace the item into the bag? I'd say it would move Exhibit 384.
No objection.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Nali.
Good morning.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
Nalid. Close enough. Nalid.
Nali. Right, thanks. You talked obviously at great length about all the items and the vehicles that you processed. And these are the 2023 Mitsubishi, the 2002 Dodge, and the 2005 Chevy Cobalt.
Correct.
Okay. When there were items that were located inside of those vehicles, you're not able to determine at what point in time those items were placed there.
Correct.
You just know that those items existed there when the vehicles were seized.
Correct.
I want to draw your attention to your testimony about the front passenger area of the 2023 silver Mitsubishi, okay?
Sure.
You'd agree that that was the only portion of that vehicle that showed a considerable amount of staining?
Correct, yeah.
It didn't appear that there was staining in the back seat or in the driver's seat?
I mean, technically, like the foot area of the right passenger seat also had some reddish brown staining, but I would associate that with the front seat itself. But for your question, no. Other than that, there wasn't significant staining anywhere.
You testified about a few of the pictures that showed the seatbelt of the passenger seat of that Mitsubishi.
Yes.
And you showed the seatbelt as it was not engaged and then also when it was engaged.
Correct.
Was it discernible to you whether or not the seatbelt was engaged at the time that the staining, the deposits were put onto the seatbelt?
Based on where the staining was, I would expect the seatbelt to have been engaged. If it wasn't engaged, there would be a void on the areas because the seatbelt would have been protected by the plastic covering on the pillar. So based on the reddish brown staining on there, it appears that the seatbelt was engaged when whatever happened.
In your words just now, whatever happened, happened. You're not able to discern what happened in that vehicle.
Correct.
Your investigation doesn't deal with anything in terms of determining the manner of death, if there was any, inside of that vehicle.
That is correct.
I don't have anything further, Judge. Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Redirect.
No redirect, thank you.
All right, you can step down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think at that point, or this point, we'll take our 15-minute morning break.
That's right.